Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Karim Hatem. Today is the 78th anniversary of UNICEF's founding. 78 years of dedication to protecting and improving rights and the well-being of children worldwide. Founded to protect children around the world, UNICEF has always faced the toughest of obstacles. But with today's escalating conflicts in the Middle East, what new hurdles will the organization face in its quest to safeguard the most vulnerable? That will be our discussion today in depth. Stay tuned. UNICEF Foundation Day marks the anniversary of the establishment of the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, better known as UNICEF. In 2024, the day carries even greater significance as the world reflects on 78 years of dedication to improving the lives of children. The day serves as a reminder of the organization's ongoing efforts to protect children's rights, promote health, nutrition, education, and shield them from violence and exploitation. It also highlights the importance of global cooperation in protecting vulnerable children, advocating for equal opportunities, and ensuring that such children have access to essential services. UNICEF was founded on December 11, 1946, with a single purpose: to protect the future of children everywhere. Over the past 78 years, it has fought for the most vulnerable, but today the challenges are more daunting than ever, especially amid the world's worst humanitarian crises. As we mark UNICEF's Foundation Day, the organization remains on the front lines, particularly as conflicts in the Middle East escalate, where survival is a daily battle and hope is fragile. As events unfold in Syria, recent escalation is further aggravating the already dire situation for the Syrian children. UNICEF's representative in Syria, Yasumasha Kimura, reports that in the past week, tens of thousands, mostly women and children, have been displaced multiple times. UNICEF urgently calls on all parties in the conflict to prioritize the protection of children, have the right to live in peace and free from fear and violence. Salim Awais, UNICEF's regional media officer for the Middle East and North Africa, adds that over the past 2 weeks, more than 370,000 people have been displaced from Aleppo, Idlib and Hama. While there is hope for the future, the immediate priority must be to support these children and families. UN agencies are continuing their response to the humanitarian crises in Gaza and Lebanon as access challenges, food shortages and reconstruction needs plague both regions. Health concerns are raising much alarm as severe access challenges prevent regular malnutrition screenings, which are critical to identifying children in need of treatment. Over the last month, the UN and aid partners distributed supplementary food to children despite logistical delays. The program reached 146,000 children in Rafah, Khan Yunis, Deir al-Balah and Gaza governorates. In Lebanon, the UN and its partners delivered vital food and water to communities in need in southern Lebanon and the governorates of Nabateea. UNICEF recently appealed for $9.9 billion in humanitarian funding to support children affected by conflict and crisis. This month, UNICEF launched the appeal in order to reach 109 million children across 146 countries with life-saving aid in 2025. UNICEF's Executive Director, Catherine Russell, warned in a statement that children's humanitarian needs have reached historic levels, with the number of affected children growing daily. With 230 million children facing severe humanitarian challenges worldwide, donor funding is crucial for timely, effective and sufficient support. Palestine and Lebanon made the largest funding request for 2025, totaling nearly $1.4 billion. Now, joining us from Riyadh via phone to discuss the future of UNICEF is Muhammad Hawari, an expert in humanitarian work. Welcome. Now, what are the main challenges today facing UNICEF with the Foundation Day marking today 78 years?
Thank you for highlighting the humanitarian situation in the region, especially and worldwide. As you mentioned, the deal for this year, it was more than what was last year for the entire world, and especially Palestine and Lebanon. Actually, the main challenging is actually not to find the money to help as much as is no stability. You cannot act correctly in any ground if there's still a conflict going on. You cannot risk the aid worker to lose their life in a situation what's exactly happening in Gaza or what is continuing in Gaza. Also in West Bank, not forgetting Lebanon and other regions, still the situation never be stable. There is the regions have kind of a specialized of renewing the conflict. It's never ever starting any kind of a conflict in the region and it ends up always the conflict is coming up and another day and another day. Gaza is not just only from the last year until today. Gaza is facing issues in the wild. And the challenge is not only UNICEF, it's also for UNRWA, for another UN agency, which is providing the essential saving or lifeline aid to all of those. For example, the education system is getting collapsed in Gaza. And the people now don't find the essential needs or the primary care for their medicals. And all of this is the main challenges, not only for UNICEF, as I mentioned, also for other UN agencies and or another humanitarian organization where they're trying to help the people in need. The population in the Middle East and North Africa is only the 5% of the global. But unfortunately, more than 45% of the crisis is in this region. And that needs an attention from the political side to stop all this conflict for the humanitarian organization can do its job correctly.
Now, based on UN reports, there have been situations in Gaza, Lebanon and Syria that, of course, need the attention of such organizations, including the UNICEF. Can you just give us an overview on how the UNICEF plans to challenge or to confront these challenges, rather? And do they have like new strategies that might actually adopt in addressing these needs in the Middle East?
If me and you go read the news and see the history of what's happening, we can see there's always a strategy to build a new alliance, to have a new partnership. You have to a new corporation, but it's keep collapse because the crisis became bigger and bigger. And there is a risk of the life of the people. Most of the people have damage or they have the bad impacts of all this crisis is the children, because the population of the youth and children is more than 55% of most of the countries. What we have a crisis inside with it. And don't forget, okay, in Palestine, Gaza, and Lebanon, they have a kind of a conflict and war. But if you go also to other countries like Iraq, to other places, they have an issue related to the education of the children. You have also an nutrition challenges. That means you need more corporate from the local government. You need more corporate from other organizations. You really need a solution bigger than just one organization. UNICEF itself, we cannot change the life of these hundreds of millions of children around the globe. They need another hand to come and help them. And that it can be happen only if the local government can be stand with them. And before of that, in the countries have a conflict, needs this conflict to be stopped. That means the strategies doesn't matter what you have. The strategies you put on the ground to help these people. It will be failure in one day when you don't have any kind of corporations on the ground.
Now, UNICEF is calling for gathering $9.9 billion to assist and support children all over the world who are impacted by conflicts and crises, including those in Gaza, Lebanon and Syria. How do you think this could be implemented, and what are the main challenges to gather such huge amounts of money, including what is needed to support children in the Middle East, and notably in Gaza, Lebanon and Syria, and not just to support them through humanitarian aid, but also to try and to support their future after the destruction of their homes and also forced displacement?
We always talk about sustainability. Sustainability is need infrastructures. And all the locations what you mentioned right now is missing the real infrastructure for everything, from health care, from sanitations, water access, education access. All of this is missing in most of the locations. And now we have more issues happening, especially in Gaza, where the people cannot grab nothing from their nutrition from the ground. No resources for no water, no any kind of farming. They don't have any kind of meat from coming from, doesn't matter, chickens or sheep or whatever. It not exist. That people is going to be collapsed from the nutrition-wise there. If you need this money or this amount of money just to start to establish ABC infrastructure for the people to continue. Usually we are talking about dignified life, but now we are talking about the life itself. The life itself is missing now in most of this location, and this is the biggest challenge.
And that leads me to another point that has been mentioned also in UNICEF reports and in UN reports altogether regarding what's happening to children. The psychological situation towards for children in places like Gaza, Lebanon and Syria. Perhaps specifically the reports were regarding Gaza. How do you think there could be any plans to restore their psychological awareness? Some countries have provided support and actual plans to work on this issue. How can there be any kind of a comprehensive plan with international collaboration that could be implemented to psychologically restore children and work on their mental issues after such conflicts and crises?
First of all, I think the words have to be removed from our daily news. We hear the war more than anything else. And people, now they are growing in something called shelter. They don't know what's called house. I am a Syrian refugee in Jordan. We don't know what means second floor. We don't understand what means stairs because they are raised in such a crisis. And this is actually we need to begin with. We need to remove the conflict itself. I didn't to hear somebody get killed. We don't hear somebody get died. In our normal life, where is your grandfather? Oh, he's aged and he died. But unfortunately, in this people's life, where is my friend? He gets killed. We need to remove the reasons of this conflict to maintain these people's mental life, to enhance how they became productive. These people raised in something called conflict. They know nothing. They know aid. We receive aid. They don't know that my father went to the shop or my mother went to the shop and brought the food. No, we know that we went to a queue and we receive our aid. And that start to be a permanent in their brain. So we start to enhance their life and to make them to recover after the trauma. We need to stop the trauma itself. But to be honest, me and you, the trauma is still going on in all of these locations and actually impact our children in our homes, even in your home in Egypt or in my home. It doesn't matter which country.
Right.
We still open the news and we hear war. Me and you now are talking about conflict. We're talking about a crisis.
Right.
If we talk only about development or building or we have a better life, then that will be starting from there. It doesn't matter how much we invest, how much we have a corporations, we will never reach any kind of a good point if we're going to remove the reason.
Right. Well, thank you very much. That was Muhammad Hawari, an expert in humanitarian work, joining us from Riyadh. Now, before we continue, let's take a look at the latest UNICEF statements on the impact of wars in the Middle East on children. Stay with us. With escalating tensions in the region, the misery that children are living through in Gaza remains unforgotten. UNICEF's Middle East and North Africa Regional Director Edouard Begabder says that day after day, Gaza has been nothing short of hell on earth. He added that at least 43,000 people have reportedly been killed since the beginning of the war, many of them children, and that's according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health. Now, according to Begabder, the overall humanitarian response in Gaza is teetering on the brink of full collapse. The lives of virtually all children are at risk or have been shattered by unimaginable trauma, loss, and deprivation. Their safety and access to essential humanitarian aid are not being facilitated as explicitly demanded by international law. For more analysis, we are joined now from Bethlehem by Rihem Jafari, a Communications and Advocacy Officer at ActionAid. Welcome. Now, regarding your work as an officer at ActionAid and what you witness through your work, what kind of trauma can we expect from the conflicts and the crises that children could face when it comes to the current crisis in the Middle East, specifically in the Palestinian lands, notably in Gaza?
Thanks for having me. The children and women are paying a heavy price and a big brand for this war, especially in Gaza, where 70% of the victims are women and children. And what we see, what we witness in Gaza and the occupied Palestinian West Bank, it is horrific testimonies. Horrendous testimonies from the children, from the women, where they are killed while they are staying in their homes, where they are amputated without having access to medical treatment. Children and women are displaced from place to another place in Gaza, seeking for a safe place or a shelter. And even in the shelter, they couldn't find anything to live in under the hindering and limited access of a humanitarian aid in Gaza. Children of Gaza are not only killed with weapons, with bombing, with rockets, they are killed with starvation, they are killed with diseases, they are killed without being treated for their injuries. They are facing a severe trauma, psychological stress, tense, worries, lack of sleep due to the continuous war. And these impacts will stay for decades and decades. Even if the war stopped now, these impacts will accompany them. The women in the West Bank and in Gaza are also suffering from everything because nothing is available in Gaza. Everything is missing. The life is missing. The food is missing. The clear water is missing, and not by a natural crisis, but a man-made crisis.
You mentioned that these problems and these crises are going to impact the children not just now, but is going to stay with them. I was going to postpone this point, but since you brought it up, the rehabilitation of the psychological implications have been a very important issues when countries and international institutions and organizations are talking about children in Gaza, especially through the UN and UNICEF reports. Now, Slovenia, for example, have provided through its foreign minister when she said that it's very important to provide support and have an actual plan to work on the psychological issues for children and women and children, actually. What do you think should happen in order for these plans to be implemented and actually put in place in Gaza?
So there are current emergency interventions, psychosocial support, and recreational activities for children in the shelters and for psychosocial support sessions for the women. But the ongoing war, the continuity of war, make those interventions are ineffective because once the organization, the local organization, the international organization organized, for example, recreational activities and psychosocial support session for children, and the children are forced to continue face bombing. How they can get rid of their fear, of their trauma? The problem in Gaza, the problem of the children, the problem of the women, the suffering of the women cannot be stopped without ceasefire. What it is needed is ceasefire, end of the war. It is important to put an end for this brutal war, to open land routes and crossing borders to humanitarian aid. How can women be comfortable while she is saying her children are starving, are hungry? How children can be assured or
But
can be.
Riham, all political paths and diplomacy paths are being exhausted right now in order to put an end to this war. I believe there has been facilitation to and negotiations to end the war, to put pressure on Israel to stop violence in Gaza and to stop shelling the Gaza Strip. However, Israel is very stubborn. Netanyahu is very stubborn, and obviously he's still continuing this war on Gaza. In the midst of the violence, are there any plans, any steps that international organizations, including the UNICEF, could take in order to try to save children's their mental issues, their psychological issues, even their physical issues, and try to support them in any way possible?
All the organizations since the beginning of the war continue their work and continue providing psychosocial support and put the plans for mitigating the impact of this war. But what the reality in the ground, that the suffering is continued with the continuing with ongoing war, with ongoing malnutrition rates, with ongoing restriction on humanitarian aid, All the organizations are working, but they are restricted. They are impeded with ongoing war. For example, once some of their responses, some of their programs are delayed, are
Right.
stopped, are impeded. When airstrikes are continued against shelter, against schools, even, and also I want to add that children in Gaza are also prevented to enjoy their right to
Right.
education, and also for the second year, and returning them to usual learning process after the end of the war wouldn't be easy,
Right.
because they are cut from their learning for months and months. And also in West Bank, children also are suffering in remote areas, in refugee camps, due to the military raids, to the incursions, and some of them
Right.
cannot reach their schools in
Right. Unfortunately, I'm out of time. Thank you very much, Riham Jafri, Communications and Advocacy Officer at Action Aid, joining us from Bethlehem. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Thank you for watching. I'm Karim Hatem. Stay tuned for more on Q News.